Welcome everyone. Today, you are about to hear the real and powerful life story of Queen Victoria. She became queen at just 18 years old, ruled the largest empire in the world, fell deeply in love, lost everything she loved most, and still remained strong. This story is perfect for English learners. It is easy to understand, full of emotion, and rich in history, love, pain, and power. If you love stories and want to learn English in a natural way, stay with us until the end. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Lonely Girl Who Would Be Queen. On a spring day in London, a baby girl was born at Kensington Palace. Her name was Alexandrina Victoria, though the world would later know her simply as Queen Victoria. At birth, no one expected her to become queen. She was far down the line of succession, behind several family members who seemed more likely to rule. But over time, one by one, those ahead of her passed away or had no children. Slowly, fate moved closer to her. To the outside world, palace life looked beautiful and rich. But for Victoria, life inside Kensington Palace felt like a cage. Her mother was extremely strict, and her mother's advisor controlled every part of her life. Together, they created harsh rules designed to isolate Victoria and keep her weak and dependent. She was not allowed to walk alone, choose her friends, or live freely. She even had to sleep in the same room as her mother. Victoria had no real childhood friends. Her closest companions were her dogs and her dolls. But inside this quiet and controlled world, something powerful was growing. She became a passionate reader and fell in love with art and music. She observed everything carefully and kept a secret diary where she poured out her thoughts. Her spirit was not broken. It was becoming stronger. When she was still very young, a teacher once showed her a family tree. As Victoria followed the lines, she suddenly realized the truth. One day, she would be queen. She told no one. That night, she wrote a simple sentence in her diary. "I will be good." It was not a childish wish. It was a promise. Her teenage years were still difficult. She felt lonely and unloved, constantly watched and judged. But she continued to learn. She mastered several languages and developed a love for writing, drawing, and painting. Quietly, she prepared herself for her future. Then, a new feeling entered her life. Love. A young man named Prince Albert, her cousin from Germany, came to visit. He was kind, intelligent, and gentle. He listened to her, spoke softly, and made her feel truly seen for the first time in her life. Though their time together was short, Victoria felt something deep. She knew he would return, and when he did, everything would change. One early morning, Victoria was awakened by a visitor. She was told that the king had died. Her uncle was gone. At just 18 years old, Victoria was now queen. She entered a room filled with powerful men who expected to control a young, fragile girl. Instead, they saw a calm, confident woman. From that moment, Victoria took control of her life. She left Kensington Palace, moved into Buckingham Palace, and removed the man who had controlled her childhood forever. For the first time, she was free. But freedom came with responsibility. She had no experience, no husband, and many people still tried to influence her. She had to learn quickly. She was determined not to be remembered as a weak ruler. She wanted to be a queen for the people, strong, fair, and wise, and she still hoped for love. The lonely girl was gone. A queen had arrived. Chapter 2. The Queen and Her Love. Becoming queen was not a celebration. It was a heavy responsibility. Victoria felt alone. Every decision rested on her shoulders. She missed having someone she could truly trust. Then, a letter arrived from her uncle in Belgium. He reminded her of Prince Albert and suggested he visit again. Victoria's heart raced. When Albert returned to London, something magical happened. The moment Victoria saw him, she knew. She later wrote in her diary that it was love at first sight. Because she was queen, only she could propose marriage. And she did honestly and bravely. Albert accepted. Their wedding was not just a royal event. It was a love story. Victoria wore a white gown, starting a tradition that continues to this day. As she walked toward Albert, she felt joy, not fear. Their marriage was a true partnership. Albert held no official power, but he became her closest advisor and strongest support. He helped her understand politics, calmed her during difficult moments, and stood beside her without trying to overshadow her. Together, they built a family and raised 9 children in a home filled with warmth, learning, and love. Albert worked quietly behind the scenes to modernize Britain, supporting education, science, culture, and progress. Victoria ruled publicly, but Albert helped shape the future. In private moments, they were simply 2 people who loved being together, reading, walking, playing music, and dreaming. Victoria once said that with Albert, she was not a queen. She was just herself. Their love was deep, human, and real, and together they ruled not with fear but with heart. Their marriage was built on partnership, trust, and devotion. But no love story lasts forever. Prince Albert had a weak body. He worked too hard, spent too many long nights at his desk, and carried endless stress on his shoulders. Slowly, his health began to fade. Victoria noticed the changes. His hands grew colder, his skin paler, and his smile less bright. She begged him to rest. He refused. "There is still so much to fix in this world," he said. Victoria did not know it yet, but the love of her life was slipping away, and her heart was about to face the deepest pain it had ever known. The loss that broke a queen. The year was one of sorrow. Winter came, and Albert continued to work endlessly. His days were filled with political papers, charity meetings, letters, and plans for the empire. He rarely slept and often forgot to eat. Then he caught a cold. It did not pass. It grew worse. He suffered from fever, chills, and deep body pain. His face lost its color, as if life itself was slowly leaving him. Doctors were called, but medicine at the time was weak. They suspected typhoid fever, an illness linked to unclean water, but no one could be sure. Victoria never left his side. She held his hand, prayed constantly, and cried when no one could see her. Deep inside, she refused to believe he could die. How could he? He was her everything. One quiet night, Albert opened his eyes for the last time. Victoria leaned close to hear his final words. "It is too dark to see," he whispered. And then he was gone. The man who had stood beside her, never above her. Her husband, her best friend, her guide, her calm, gone. The palace fell silent. The empire held its breath. Victoria did not scream. She did not collapse. She simply disappeared inside herself. A queen in eternal mourning. From that moment on, Queen Victoria never wore color again. She dressed only in black. Every day, every season, for the rest of her life. She removed all brightness from her world. Music stopped. Parties ended. Flowers disappeared. Even her curtains and jewelry were black. She stopped smiling. She became a ghost wearing a crown. Victoria locked her grief deep inside her heart and closed the door to the world. She left London and lived mostly in quiet, hidden homes far from public life. She stayed often at Osborne House and at Balmoral Castle in the Scottish Highlands. She did not want to be seen. She did not want to rule. She only wanted to grieve. For many years, Victoria almost vanished from public life. She avoided Parliament, refused public ceremonies, and stayed away from national events. Newspapers began asking, "Where is our queen?" The people grew angry. They called her the Widow of Windsor, the Invisible Monarch, the Mourning Queen. Cartoons mocked her. Politicians criticized her. But they did not understand. She was not only mourning a husband. She was mourning half of herself. Albert had been her confidence, her strength, her guide. Without him, she no longer knew who she was. Her children were grieving too, but Victoria, lost in her own sorrow, struggled to comfort them. Her relationship with her eldest son, Albert Edward, grew cold and painful. She blamed him for Albert's death, believing stress caused by a scandal involving her son had weakened her husband. This belief created a deep distance between mother and son that lasted for decades. Love after loss. Victoria refused to let Albert be forgotten. She filled the country with his memory. Statues, portraits, and memorials rose everywhere. His room at Windsor Castle was kept exactly the same for decades, as if he might return. Every day she looked at his portrait. Every night, she spoke to him in her diary. In time, she needed help with daily life. A strong Scottish servant named John Brown was sent to assist her. He was loyal, protective, and honest. He treated her like a person, not just a queen. Many people whispered that they were more than companions. No proof ever appeared, but Victoria clearly cared for him deeply. When he died, she mourned again, calling him one of the truest hearts she had ever known. Slowly, after many years, something changed. The Queen returns. A new Prime Minister, Benjamin Disraeli, came into power. He respected Victoria and reminded her that the people still needed her. He treated her with warmth and dignity and gave her confidence again. Little by little, she returned to public life. She reopened Parliament. She met world leaders. She became visible once more. Her sadness never disappeared, but it became part of her strength. The people began to respect her even more, not because she was perfect, but because she had suffered and endured. She became the mother of a nation, queen of the world. After years of darkness, Queen Victoria stepped back into her destiny. Not because the pain was gone, but because something greater called her forward, her people and her duty. She was no longer the young woman in love. She was a survivor. Her empire stretched across continents. It was said that the sun never set on it. And at the center stood Victoria, small in size, dressed in black with an iron will. She became Empress of India, a title that filled her with pride and purpose. She developed a deep interest in Indian culture, language, and traditions. Through her Indian attendant, Abdul Karim, she learned, listened, and connected emotionally to a land she never visited. Though the palace disapproved, Victoria protected him fiercely. Their bond was not romantic, but spiritual and human. By the end of her life, she was no longer just a monarch. She was a legend, the final goodbye. In her final years, Victoria grew weaker but never abandoned her duty. She continued writing letters and thinking of Albert, even as her body failed. At Osborne House, surrounded by family, she prepared for the end. She had outlived almost everyone she loved. One quiet winter day, Queen Victoria took her final breath. The woman who ruled an empire. The woman who loved deeply and suffered greatly. The woman who shaped an era. She was gone. But her story, of love, loss, strength, and endurance, would live forever. She died surrounded by her family. And with her death, an entire era came to an end. The news spread across the world. From London to India, from Canada to Australia, from Africa to the Caribbean, people mourned. Shops closed their doors. Church bells rang in sorrow. Flags were lowered. Newspapers were printed with black borders. Millions of people had never known another monarch. For them, Queen Victoria was not just a ruler. She was a constant presence. Her face appeared on coins, stamps, buildings, books, and documents. Her name defined an entire age. Now she was gone, a farewell filled with love. Queen Victoria left clear instructions for her funeral. She did not want a dark ceremony. She wanted a white funeral because she believed she would be reunited with Prince Albert. She asked that Albert's robe be placed beside her, a lock of his hair placed in her hand, and a picture of him laid close to her heart. She also requested deeply personal items, gifts from her children, small objects from her private life, and a hidden photograph of John Brown inside her coffin. This was not the coffin of a queen. It was the memory box of a woman who had loved deeply. Her coffin was carried slowly and respectfully. Kings, queens, soldiers, and world leaders bowed in silence. The empire she had ruled stood still. After her death, her son became king under a new name. The world moved forward, but nothing ever felt the same again. Because Queen Victoria had not only ruled Britain, she had defined it. Her legacy. Queen Victoria's legacy is complex. She was not perfect. She lived during a time of empire, control, inequality, and strict traditions. But she left behind something powerful. She proved that a woman could rule a global empire. She showed that strength can exist alongside emotion. She ruled not through fear, but through endurance. She transformed mourning into dignity. She ruled longer than anyone expected. She loved deeper than most rulers ever dared. She suffered more than the world ever saw. And still she stood. What her life teaches us. Queen Victoria's life teaches us something important. You can be lonely and still be strong. You can be broken and still lead. You can lose everything and still continue. She did not begin as a powerful woman. She became one. Through pain, love, responsibility, and time. She did not chase greatness. Greatness grew around her. At the end of everything, she was not only a queen or an empress. She was a lonely child, a loving wife, a grieving widow, a strict mother, and a determined woman. Her crown was heavy. Her heart was heavier, and she carried both. 5 life lessons from Queen Victoria. First lesson. Where you start does not decide where you end. Victoria was never meant to be queen. She was a small, quiet girl raised under strict control. She was isolated, watched, and limited. People tried to keep her weak and silent. Yet destiny chose her. She proved that no matter how small your beginning is, no matter how trapped you feel, you can rise. Your beginning is not your ending. Second lesson. Pain will come, but you must carry on. Victoria lost the love of her life. Her world collapsed. She disappeared into grief for years. But she returned. Not because the pain vanished, but because she learned to carry it and still move forward. Life will break you. You will lose people. But do not stop living. You can be sad and still be strong. Third lesson. Love is not a weakness. It is power. Victoria ruled with Prince Albert beside her. Not above her, not behind her. Their partnership made her stronger. Real love does not weaken you. It gives you courage. Surround yourself with people who walk beside you, not ahead of you. Fourth lesson. You do not have to be loud to be powerful. Victoria did not rule through shouting or speeches. She ruled through consistency, dignity, and quiet strength. You do not need to scream to be heard. Sometimes silence speaks louder than noise. Fifth lesson. Your life can inspire generations without you knowing. Victoria did not chase fame. She focused on surviving, loving, and doing her duty. Today, her name still lives on. She became the symbol of an entire era. You may not know it yet, but your story matters. The end and the beginning. Queen Victoria's life was more than history. It was a journey of growth, loss, strength, and endurance. She was born into fear. She was raised in silence. She wore a crown too early. She loved deeply and lost painfully. She disappeared. She returned. She ruled the world. She led not because she was perfect, but because she was real. And if you ever feel too broken, too small, or too ordinary to do something great, remember her. Because she proved this truth. Even a lonely girl can become a queen. And even you can become unforgettable. Thank you for learning.